As you're watching this video, already messages are being sent from your brain telling you about what is being displayed at the current moment.
But how do these messages work and what do the different areas of your brain do?
Well, to start, the transportation of these messages is all part of the nervous system, but not nervousness. Well, the nervous system is sort of why you become nervous.
The nervous system is the network of nerve cells and fibers that transmits nerve impulses between parts of the body. The functions depend on the complex interaction between billions of neurons.
These neurons respond to stimuli such as touch, sound, light, etc., and are able to conduct impulses and communicate with other cells. The brain therefore can coordinate mental and physical functions in the body.
The brain is composed of gray matter and white matter. Gray matter is the material that contains the neurons and the synapses. White matter is made of axons and connect the gray matter together.
The brain is made of many different components. These main parts are the brainstem, the temporal lobes, the parietal lobe, the frontal lobe, the occipital lobe, and the cerebellum. Each of these parts of the brain are necessary for different actions in the body. There are two of every lobe on each brain, one on one hemisphere and the other on the other hemisphere.
The brainstem maintains homeostasis, controls alertness, sleep, balance, and startle response. The temporal lobes control recognition, perception, understanding language, and learning and memory. The parietal lobes control perception, visual spatial processing, spatial attention, spatial mapping, and number representation. The frontal lobes control executive processes like voluntary behavior and planning. The occipital lobe controls vision. The cerebellum controls coordination, balance, posture, timing, and sequence learning.
The brain seems very cool, but how does our body protect it?
The brain is protected by the cranium of the skull. There are three membranes protecting it: the dura mater, the arachnoid, and the pia mater.
Think of it as a cake with three layers. The first layer is the dura mater, the second is the arachnoid, and the final layer is the pia mater. How does the brain develop? Are you born with all these things?
Yes, you are. The only thing that really grows is the glial cells. You are born with most of the neurons that you will have throughout your lifetime. These glial cells, which together with neurons make up tissue of the central nervous system, however, continue to divide. Throughout development, pruning occurs. Have you ever wondered why you develop certain habits that become easy to perform in second nature? Or even why babies learn languages so easily, and when you get older, it can be very difficult?
This is because when you are born, your brain has many more connections than you end up having throughout your adult life. You are born with connections that you will never need, and so the brain goes through and breaks these connections, making the brain more streamlined and useful. But what happens when something goes wrong?
Problems in the frontal lobes can lead to paralysis, mood changes, and inability to express language, and atypical social skills arise. In the parietal lobes, there would also be a certain inability to recognize objects and difficulty discriminating between sensory info throughout the body. If there are problems in the temporal lobes, difficulties in understanding speech, fades, and objects, and long and short term memory loss arise. Occipital lobe problems are hallucinations, blindness, and inability to see color, as well as motion and orientation problems. In the cerebellum, problems are loss of coordination, tremor, inability to walk, dizziness, and slurred speech. In the brainstem, associated disorders are organ failure, difficulties with balancing, and sleep disorders. Now on to reflexes. Although we have been talking about the brain a lot, reflexes don't even reach the brain.
Reflexes are reactions to stimuli that require no real processing. Have you ever wondered why when the doctor taps your knee, it always jerks, even if you try not to move?
It is because this is a reflex that has no interneurons, or a neuron that conveys impulses between a motor and sensory neuron between the motor and sensory neuron. When the doctor taps your knee, the sensory neuron sends a signal to the spine, and straight to a motor neuron, which then sends its signal down to your knee and makes the muscle contract and your knee jerk.
There are no interneurons, so no processing is going on, and you really have no control over the reflex.